Good evening, and welcome to the candidates debate for the Wakefield School Committee in the upcoming annual town election, April 25th. My name is Bill Carroll. I'm your town moderator, and I have this side gig of always moderating the town debates. Tonight's debate is going to last for 45 minutes. There are 2 seats open for a 3-year term. The candidates looking for your vote at this election, are Pete Davis, Alexandra McCarowitz, and Kevin Piscadlo. Posing questions for the candidates tonight is Bob Burgess from the Wakefield Daily Item and Ann McGonigal-Santos, a former town councilor. There are no opening statements for this evening's debate. Questions will be asked the candidate by one of the panelists. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the question, okay? To allow for as many questions as possible, I have to keep time here. If I slow somebody down or tell them that's the end, it has no impact at all on the candidate's performance or their opinions or anything. Candidates, I'm confident, will keep their answers short and to the point. Questions have not been provided to the candidates in advance. I'm confident the questions will be relevant to the issues of the town. And there are no questions of a personal nature are not allowed. I'm sure these two are not going to ask personal questions. All right, Pete, here's what we want to know. At the end of the debate, each candidate in turn will have the opportunity to present a 2-minute closing statement. Strict compliance with the stated time limits will be observed in order to have, as many questions as we can. I'm in charge of how this runs, so it's no impact on the candidates at all if something occurs. All right, Mr. Burgess, you kick things off with a question to Pete Davis.
Pete, good evening. With the recent passage of a new Wakefield Memorial High, the town has committed to making a huge investment in the school system. In your opinion, what are some of the best ways the school committee can reward that investment?
I want to start by just thanking our moderators today, thanking our panelists, and also my fellow candidates here today with me to talk about our schools in Wakefield. In terms of, I believe, the best way we can make use of our high school, I believe that every building we have in town, whether it's schools or other buildings, need to be properly maintained. So I think this high school is going to be state of the art, and we need to make sure that for generations to come, this high school is there to support not only our children, but the children of generations to come later on. As we worked on building this new high school and getting support for it, one of the things that I think was definitely loud in folks who were opposed to it was just the discussion about how Wakefield had done a very poor job taking care of our current school buildings, especially the high school. I think that this high school has the opportunity to bring a lot of new families to town. It has the ability to really be a shining star of our educational community, just like the Galvin is.
Okay, next question is from Ann to Alex.
I think they all
Oh, 2 minutes, I'm sorry. Well, I screwed that up from the get-go, didn't I?
We're starting off great.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
I'm so concerned about timing here.
Well, now you're wasting my 2 minutes. No, I'm kidding. I think I 100% agree with what Pete is saying. Maintenance, maintenance, maintenance. I think bringing back to the district budget a lot of the funds that were sent over to the town budget that used to be for maintaining our buildings is absolutely key. I think continuing to hear from the other side that did vote no, what their concerns still are, what their grievances still are, because that isn't going to go away anytime soon. There is still going to be those conversations had, and I think it is important to still hear those sides. Although the town has already voted and the decision is made, it's the right thing to do, and that conversation needs to stay open. And then lastly, the lines of communication, updating the community on where the project currently is. If we're delayed, if we're ahead, if there are changes, really start to engage the community even more so than they had before, and maybe that will help with the those who have voted no, and those who are feeling the financial strain of this new high school could potentially come around.
Thank you. Kevin?
Yeah, personally, I also want to start by thanking WCAT and our panelists for being here today. I was extremely happy to see the vote pass for the new high school. Had the unique opportunity during my first couple terms to be part of the Galvin process and to see how that's kind of transformed our town in many ways and certainly had a really positive impact on education in our town. And certainly, even though I'm going to be sad to see this building go, one that I was a part of, I think it was more than time for that to happen as well. So it's been unique that I've been able to be on the school building committee and kind of see the process take place. But I do think that our responsibility to the town certainly continues. It always does. It's no different. But I think knowing the financial impact that a decision like this has, one that I support and certainly voted for myself, I think one of the first things we can do is continue to be fiscally responsible. One of our main responsibilities as a school committee is to create the budget, and doing so in a way that's fiscally responsible is something that I've always advocated throughout the 8 years on the committee, particularly my first 2, which was during very difficult financial times, but will continue to advocate for some as well. One of the things I noticed with the Galvin is how much that space has become a community space. And so I think we certainly owe it to our community that the high school be as well. And it's even physically set up so that way that the community can take advantage of this building. All of our buildings are for the town, not just a certain segment of it. I think the other thing that I'm really sensitive to is the impact that this is going to have on some taxpayers. Certainly someone who doesn't have anything to benefit in the sense of not having children that are going to benefit from this, but just being committed to the social contract that we pay things forward, having benefited from it myself. But there are some opportunities that our town council and our representatives have fought for to provide some tax relief. So I think it's really important as school committee members that we continue to advertise that, encourage those that may qualify to seek that out with Town Hall.
Okay, Ann, now I've got this right. Ann, your question is to Alex.
Okay. Good evening, Alex. Knowing that the school committee jurisdiction is quite defined, what do you think your most important role will be as a member of the school committee?
I think 100% my most important role is being the voice of the parents and the voice of the students. I mean, that's who I'm representing. If I'm elected to the school committee on April 5th or 25th, I'm not representing myself or my interests, my beliefs. I'm representing everybody in our community. So I think it's 100% critical that that line of communication between myself and fellow parents and students stay open, because at the end of the day, they are the ones inside the classroom. It's our students who are sitting in those desks. And like you said, it's very defined kind of the jurisdiction of what a school committee member does. But I think being able to connect with our community and let parents and students know that their voice is being heard and that there's somebody sitting on the board that is fighting and advocating for them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think one of the biggest things that I think I often educate people on, and even was educated on myself, I think there's a learning curve to being a new member, is that the role is really defined. Mm-hmm. It's got 3 kind of major components, and one is supervising the Superintendent Lyons. The second is budget, as I heard referred to in the first question. And then the third one is policy. And so I think, our role within that is to make sure that we're doing all of those 3 things well, that we are working with the superintendent to create goals for the system that we're going to hold him accountable to, but that represent the type of school system that we want here in town, that responds to the needs of 21st century learning, but also is one that represents the values that we have as a community. The second is budget. How do we do so at a time when budgets are tight? It can always be difficult. You can always spend a lot of money on education, and you want to, but how do you do so that it's responsible, but that at the same time not jeopardizing the education that we're providing, nor the salaries and the benefits that our 602 employees of the Wakefield Public School System deserve and have earned, and I will fight for. And then lastly is policy. How do we create policy that will advance the goals of the district that aforementioned with the superintendent, as well as general goals of the system? How do we create policies that are going to keep our students safe? Student safety is an important one. How do we create policies that allow our faculty and staff to thrive as employees of this district? So that's really the roles that I would say. And our constituencies are wide. They're the students, they're the families, and they're the 602 employees of the system.
Thanks, Kevin.
if you vote for me and I'm elected, certainly my top priority would be the safety of our kids in our schools. Every day in our country, kids are losing their lives in schools. People are shopping and they're losing their lives. The number one thing we owe it to our kids is that they come to school and they're safe, and that their parents don't need to worry that their kids will return home safely at the end of the day. And the same can be said for our staff who come to work. So the absolute number one priority for me will be anything we can do on our school committee to work with our chief of police and our police department to set policies that keep kids safe, not just from guns, but also emotionally safe. We shouldn't have kids who are going to school and are getting bullied for being different. We want our school to be a welcoming place where our students look forward to coming each day. And I think that's how they can best really just thrive in the environment we provide to them. I think Kevin's absolutely right. Our budget is like the other main thing we have to do, and it's a big budget. We're talking $50 million, 48% of our overall town budget. But as Kevin said, this is 602 staff that we're employing, and we're educating over 3,300 students. And these are students from all different types of learning backgrounds. And I have 4 kids of my own, 3 who are currently still in the Wakefield Public Schools. And through this, I can say I have my own different types of learners. I have a child who struggled. But you know what? One of the reasons I chose to run was I saw the passion of our educators, our teachers, that their goal in life was to make sure my daughter succeeded. They came to school every day and they put in whatever time it took to make sure that she no longer struggled, to the point where she's now in high school and she went from struggling to excelling. And so I believe we need to meet our learners where they are. There's certainly a ton of learners who are struggling. We have 18% and change who are on special education, and we need to make sure we meet all of our learners, both the ones on all sides of the learning spectrum. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob, next question. To Kevin.
Kevin, teachers in some area communities walked off the job last fall and earlier this year, upset over working conditions brought on partly by the COVID pandemic. In your opinion, are teachers treated fairly in Wakefield? Do they have enough educational tools at their disposal to adequately teach our kids? Please elaborate.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. I think it's a really difficult time to be in education nowadays. I certainly know, being a teacher and educator at the college level, but certainly having had this unique view as a member of the school committee to see what's going on day in, day out. And as much as we joke at work that COVID's over and we've kind of moved on, the impact of it, we don't even know what it's gonna be in the end. We're starting to see signs of it in terms of behavior, learning recovery that needs to take place. And I think it's more difficult than ever to be an educator in 2023. I think that we have a school committee that's really dedicated to working with our very talented faculty and staff. Staff play a critical role in the day-to-day operations of our system as well. We just completed 6 of our 7 bargaining units that I think we were able to settle fair contracts, but also that rewarded them for the work that they do. I think we have an administration that is willing to work hand in hand with our teachers and the other areas of the school system to make sure that we're addressing their needs as well. Students are having more behavioral issues. Students are having some learning recovery issues. And I think as long as we're creating systems that allow for professional development for our teachers, time for planning for our teachers, and then continuing to invest in safety and policies that will make sure that our faculty and staff are safe as well, I think is really important. But I get why some other districts have really struggled. It's a really difficult time. But I'm really feeling really positive, being a member of our labor negotiations committee, that we'll come to a fair contract with our teachers. We're in the middle of that now, and I'm really looking forward to it coming to a conclusion that's in the best interest of both the teachers as well as the school system.
Thank you. Pete.
I would agree with Kevin. I think we have, as a town, tried to always do right by our teachers. And I saw that when our para educators were going through their last contract negotiation, where the school committee really did their best to try to take care of important members of our teaching community who were not being compensated fairly. I think as a town, we have to make sure that we're providing an environment where staff want to come work in Wakefield and they want to remain in our district. We don't want to be the community where we only get leftover teachers who can't find jobs in other communities. We want to be that community that recruits and retains the absolute best teachers we can. And I think, as Kevin said, part of the way you do that is to have the absolute best superintendent. One of the key roles of the school committee is to be the boss of the superintendent. And I think we are very lucky in Wakefield to have a very strong superintendent, assistant superintendent. You know, we could be our neighbors in Melrose. They lost their superintendent. They now have had 2 candidates back out on them, and they're going to go into a school year with an interim superintendent. In terms of enough tools to teach kids, I think people become teachers because they love kids. You know, it certainly is not a career that I think people enter because you're going to become rich. But I think what we want to make sure is that we are compensating our teachers as well as we can, and we're making sure that we are giving them coworkers, professional development, in an environment that makes them really want to come to work in Wakefield and stick with our kids in our district. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex?
I think that the long, short answer of both of those is yes and no. Are they being treated fairly? Yes and no. I mean, there is so much more that goes into being a teacher nowadays than people realize. The subject matter that you learned in college isn't just what you're responsible for. You're responsible for that entire student, their mental health, their well-being, and we're definitely seeing that after COVID. And we're seeing so many teachers being burnt out. And I think that is a lot because of different policies in place or just the environment of that school district in particular. I think that we are very fortunate that that isn't kind of the environment and the tone to which our schools are run or what's going on the inside. And I think that when we're looking at resources and do they have everything that they need, again, the long short of it is yes and no. And that all plays into kind of like the times we're in. We're coming out of COVID. That is still a territory that we don't know the fallout and repercussions of. Kevin had touched upon, you know, catching students up academically, trying to meet them where they're at. Well, we also need to consider doing that for our staff more as well. And I don't think it's always necessarily about contracts and wages and resources that define if we're treating them fairly and if they have everything they need. Showing respect, letting the teachers and the staff and everybody who works for our school district know that we see them, that they are appreciated, and that what they are doing does not go unnoticed. And eventually, as times will change, budgets and things work out, COVID aftermath slows down, we will be able to give them everything that they deserve, both financially and with resources.
Thank you. All right, next question is Ann to Pete.
Pete, this has been touched on a little bit in all of your answers, but we know that students pre-pandemic we saw an increase in mental health issues. And as Alex correctly pointed out, teachers are asked to do an awful lot, just like our law enforcement. So with an increase in mental health, certainly in COVID, it's gotten worse. And we also know that we have an increase since 2020, 2019 of 14 million more students being diagnosed with ADHD. How do we address that? So you're trying to teach them the fundamentals of learning, but we have this big elephant in the room.
I think the way that we work with this is we just provide the best resources we can to support our kids. One of the areas that I'm proud of our current school committee is investing in folks to provide support for kids, student support areas in the district. And I feel by providing the right resources there, hopefully we can help with kids that are struggling. As you look, it's not just struggling in that regard, it's struggling across the board. For anyone that's looked at our youth risk behavior survey, which our Assistant Health and Services Director, Catherine Dingra, has presented to school committee about, and will be going out to families in 7th and 8th grade soon, we have kids that are vaping in 7th and 8th grade. They're getting behind the wheel and smoking marijuana and drunk driving in high school. We have kids that have anxiety. We have kids who want to commit suicide. Their kids are going to school and getting bullied, and they're just not being accepted. Nationwide, 17% of students have considered committing suicide. 19% say they're getting bullied, and 14% are dealing with misuse of prescription pain medicine. So I think to answer your question, it's about providing as much resources and support as we can. COVID certainly did not help. We need to provide all of the support we can to our students. Going to school is not just about teaching kids subjects. It's about making sure they're in a supporting environment, supported by teachers and staff who care about them, supported by peers who are going to just treat them as nice friends, regardless of whether we're different. So I think, it's just about making sure that we're providing the best environment we can for our students. There's no perfect answer here. Kids are always going to struggle in different ways, but I think by providing all of those supports and ensuring that one of the ways we can help kids, just make sure they have a trusted adult they can talk to in the building if they're struggling in some way.
Thank you.
Alex.
All right, so at being a mom of a child who has ADHD and several other diagnoses, and that is on an IEP that receives counseling and health services, along with academic supports being pulled out of the classroom, all kinds of things like that. I think one of the biggest components to this is the special ed department and guaranteeing that we have the proper diagnoses for these students, and then being able to send them in the direction that they need for services. Not every kid learns the same. That is one of my biggest gripes with just education in general, not specifically our school district, is that we kind of teach to the masses sometimes. We don't teach to the individual. And there's so many different reasons for that. A lot of it is just funding, resources, staff, number of class sizes. It would be an ideal world if we could, tailor our teaching to every single student's learning style, but that's just not possible. But I think putting money and funding into those resources for students who need that extra academic support, along with their mental health, like that double-edged component that a student would have, is vital. I think that providing staff with the supports who are teaching these students, because like you said, we have a classroom of 23, third graders? They're rambunctious in general, let alone adding a child with ADHD. Their behavior may come out and exhibit in a different way. It may be more aggressive. It may be that they don't care. And that can be challenging for staff, so making sure they have what they need on their end for supports and resources. And lastly, my biggest, parent involvement, parent involvement, parent involvement. So parents are aware of what's going on with their child inside the classroom, that they are able to then take what they are learning and how their child is learning it in school and bring that home and model those same behaviors, use those the same verbiage to really reinforce it. And I think if we were to do that consistently across the board, we would see a dramatic change.
Thank you.
Yeah, dealing with these sorts of issues are something I deal with every day in my role at Stonehill College. One of my biggest responsibilities is to oversee counseling services. So I certainly see on a daily basis the impact that not only COVID certainly exacerbated a little bit, but certainly the trends, I think, within health in general and the number of health, particularly mental health issues that a lot of our students are dealing with. I think in terms of a school committee's responsibility to that, I think it's certainly making sure that our faculty and staff feel supported. We, in our, what I think, fairly modest budget that we are presenting, one of the priorities was an additional hire in the area of psychological services. But I think it needs to go beyond that. I think it can't just be more clinicians. We talk about this at Stonehill all the time. We can keep adding people to our counseling center, and it would probably be nonstop into perpetuity. There'll be more and more people coming. But I think it's a public health issue, and I think it's something that, I think out of our kind of bailiwick, but at the same time, I do think that there's an opportunity to continue to collaborate with our public health officials, to create additional opportunities to work with families, to help people kind of learn more about these diagnoses. I think Parent University is a great example of a collaboration that can bring this sort of information to the community by bringing in some amazing speakers, so that this isn't just a school problem. It's really a community problem. It's certainly not a Wakefield problem. It's an entire societal problem. So I think if we kind of look at it as a public health issue, which I think it very much is, I think we can pick out our lane within that for the students that are here in our systems by investing wisely, by supporting those that are here, and by creating the types of structures so that our students can be successful.
Okay, next question is Bob to Alex.
Alex, what are the school system's greatest capital needs now?
God, staffing. Being able to afford to pay the salaries of the most top-notch staff possible. being able to recruit not just staff, but the support staff as well. Our paraprofessionals, I think, are some of the most underappreciated and thought about, group in our school system, and that's across the board. That's not just in Wakefield. And I think that being able to support them and bring in the best, but also provide the professional developments to go along with it. I mean, when you're hiring staff, you're thinking big and long term. You're thinking the whole gamut of what we're trying to accomplish by how many staff we have, what areas we're hiring them in. And I think being able to look at that broader picture and really allocate the funds appropriately, maybe cut down in areas that aren't necessarily needed within the budget for different, not necessarily academic areas, but other enrichments or enhancements that we tend to funnel a lot of money into, and really work on the hiring and retention of top-notch staff. And that goes for administrators as well. You've heard both of the other candidates mention the superintendent. We want to make sure that we have the best of the best from the top to the bottom. And by no means is there a bottom hierarchy in our school system, but that's just kind of the structure of schools in general. But I think having strong leaders, having the right people in the right chairs making these decisions is absolutely key, and having the most knowledgeable individuals, and that takes money. You really want to have the funds into it in order to hire and retain those individuals.
Can I just go back?
Sure.
How about buildings? That's what I'm basically talking. I'm talking about buildings.
The new high school. Long short of it is the new high school, and really keeping that up, and what that is going to mean to this community. And I think as we look at how the town is growing, I think we need to keep it in the back of our minds, the potential of the growth for elementary schools. Like, where are these students going to go? What's going to happen? Are we going to need to build new buildings? Just the different areas and things like that, thinking about the building aspect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Kevin.
Yeah, thank you, Bobby. I was wondering, when I think capital needs, I think of our buildings, our vehicles, like those sorts of things, not the people that work here. So I think in terms of some of our biggest capital needs, certainly was the high school. I'm going to take that off the table because the town certainly has gone above and beyond in supporting our new high school. I would say in no particular order, I think things that are on our horizon is going to be our Greenwood School. Having been a Herd alumni, I have a special place in my heart for those old buildings, and man, are they strong. But they need some work, and Greenwood's really one of our only ones left, and it's got a proud tradition, but it does need some work to bring it up to the types of level that the other children in our community get to enjoy at some of the more modern facilities. Some of the issues around some of our accessible playgrounds, we made some great strides. Sounds silly, but it's so important. Having spent many Saturdays with my nephews at them, I think it's really important to create a play structure. I think we know more and more, going back to mental health, about the importance of unstructured play and getting out of the classroom. Things are so challenging and so rigorous, rather, academically, way more than when I was in school. I think that those kinds of spaces are really important, and we know more than ever how important accessible spaces so that all students can participate is important. I would also then add an issue that started to come up is around security. I think that there are some great capital needs around security. I think certainly one of the bigger roles that we play is making sure that we advocate for appropriate security at our schools. So whether that's additional cameras, whether it's different locking mechanisms. I have a card now that you can get into a school. Is it different ways of arranging things physically? And just having watched as a member of the school building committee, some of those discussions around the new high school and some of those considerations that are being made, what are going to need to be invested within our older schools to be able to create that same commitment to security that we owe our students, faculty, and staff.
Pete.
So I don't have a lot to add on top of what Kevin said, because I think he covered everything, but there is one other thing that comes to mind for me, and that is, I've been hearing discussions about perhaps more of a universal type of pre-K that could be coming to the communities in the Commonwealth. And as we start to think about that, and then we need to go figure out, for starters, I think this is a great idea. I love it. But where are we going to put all of these kids? It's not like we have some magic school with 50 more classrooms for all of these students. we do have the Herd School, but we know it's full of lead paint, needs a bunch of windows, it's not accessible. I think we have to start looking at, okay, if this is coming down one day, where are we going to put all of these kids? Because we don't, we certainly do want to take advantage of that if there's an opportunity to provide some additional early education to students, especially at no cost. I agree with Kevin. I mean, certainly anything we can do on the front of security to protect our kids, we should be doing. And, I think one challenge that we have, to Bob's question, is we just asked our fellow townspeople to make a huge investment in the high school. We've got a $50 million school budget. I definitely agree the Greenwood is up there in terms of priorities and investment. We just have to figure out, how do we do this without going back to the town over and over again and asking for more and more and more? Are there grants we can get? Is the MSBA finally going to step up and give more money than the kind of the measly percentages they gave us to go build a new high school? So I think that's kind of my summary.
Thank you. And next question is to Kevin.
Kevin, I'm going to go national and bring it back, because all politics are certainly local. What are your thoughts on parents being allowed to pull content through book banning, through banning of Michelangelo as pornography? Do you think there is a place for that? Or if a concern is raised, is there a policy to address it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's certainly an issue that we're starting to see, like you said, nationally. I haven't heard about it as much locally, at least within our system here, but it's one that really concerns me. I think as someone who enjoys history, and someone who knows kind of some of the things, when you look back, book banning's really scary. I went to a Catholic school and took a lot of philosophy, and Voltaire once said, "Think for yourselves and let others enjoy the privilege to think so too." And I think it's important that we don't step in and make people think the way in any one way. I think it's really critical as educational leaders in particular to fight back against any initiatives to ban books, to get involved in the curriculum, anything along those lines. We have a top-notch faculty and staff. We have faculty who are expert educators who know what needs to be done in order to help our students reach 21st century learning goals. We have a Commonwealth who's identified metrics that students need to reach by the time they graduate. And I think, just like I wouldn't, suggest a camera for Ryan, what should be used in the studio here, I don't think that we should allow those that aren't experts to have a say in what's going to be taught within our school systems. I'm not disempowering families to make decisions for their own children in terms of where they should be educated or what's the best fit for them. But I think as a society, it's really critical that we allow our experts, those that have dedicated a life and a vocation to education, to make those decisions for the best way to prepare our students for the future.
Thank you.
Pete?
Yeah, I'm definitely a big no on book banning. In terms of my feeling, I think national divisive politics do not belong in our schools. Our curriculum exists not because it's there to be some masquerading of political views. It's there because that's what it's delivering on what DESE asked us to deliver on, the curriculum required to teach our students. So just in terms of my background, I just don't believe that type of divisive political views belong anywhere near just the way our schools should be run. I believe that the way we can best spend our energy is not in banning books or arguing with one another. It's really just looking at how do we work together for the best education that we can provide to our students in town. And so, no, I'm definitely a big no on book banning.
So
Alex?
I am the polar opposite end of the spectrum from the other two candidates. I believe that parents have every right to be able to see what curriculums, materials, and books are being used in their kids' schools. And if they have some kind of question or issue or however they feel about it, they have a right to go to the school and ask about it. There has to be policies in place within district for parents to be allowed to do this. Now, I'm not saying we go rogue and we let parents come in, or community members at that, because if you pay taxes, you kind of have a little bit of a say in this, that there has to be a medium, there has to be a line. There are some materials in our schools, our district included, that aren't acceptable to most parents if they were to see it. Now, does that mean it's every book that somebody has an issue with or every material should be called to question and should be removed. Absolutely not. But I think we need to take a critical look at what certain books are doing in certain things. Yeah, I'm the polar opposite, because again, like I said, of my other two candidates. I'm not saying that it needs to be something that we let get out of hand, but I think that a parent has the right to at least call it to question, to bring it to someone's attention and see if anybody else potentially agrees with them or doesn't know the information. Because what one person finds acceptable, another person doesn't. And so that's where there's that fine line. Again, I'm not saying that we need to go and completely wipe out our district's library, but I'm saying parents do 100% have that right in my mind.
Thank you.
Okay, we're a little tight for time, and so here's what we're going to do. We're going to start with your closing remarks, okay? Why don't we start? We started with Pete, the first question, so why don't we start with Kevin? Thank you.
Thank you. First, I'd like to start by thanking Ann and Bob, and certainly our town moderator for hosting the debate, and of course WCAT and its amazing team for making this forum possible. In the Wakefield Public Schools, I learned the importance of civic engagement, and nearly over three terms I've spent on the school committee. It's allowed me to give back to the community that formed me, my brothers, and now my two little nephews, John and Lucas, both slated to graduate, if you can believe it, in the 2030s, long time from now. My 8 years of service, though, has been marked, I think, by sound decision-making, a record of balancing school and town interests, while always advocating for our students and employees. Throughout my time, I have constantly practiced strong fiscal management, created new revenue sources. I worked to collaboratively work with our unions. I worked to help build the beautiful Galvin Middle School, and now we've been focusing on the high school. And as a member of the school building committee, been able to play a role there. If reelected, I have many goals that I would like to reach, but a couple that I would like to share, both short, medium, and long term, including settling our 7th and final contract as we're in negotiations with our teachers, continue to explore opportunities to provide additional academic rigor and challenge for our advanced learners, and to continue the progress on the new high school so that towards the end of my term, we'll be on the verge of moving in. We're so lucky to have a history of dedicated school committee members, and this particular committee is one of the most committed I've worked with. It is, though, a fairly new membership with the mean of experience only at 2 years. My experience and the unique role that I play as a long-term member with a doctorate in education as a Wakefield High School alum and the only member without children provides me with a trove of lessons to draw upon, but also a perspective that isn't represented on the committee. As such, I respectfully ask for one of your 2 votes for Wakefield School Committee. Thank you.
Pete.
My name is Pete Davis, and I'm running for school committee. I'd like to close out tonight thanking WCAT and everyone here this evening, as well as Mike Boudreau for his service to our town. I am a dad of 4 students who have attended Wakefield Public Schools. I currently have 2 children at the Galvin and 1 at the Dolbear. I am the PTO president at the Galvin and am actively involved in education throughout the town. I'm an almost 25-year Wakefield homeowner and resident whose professional background is in high tech, and if elected, will bring my commitment to hard work and my passion for our district's success to school committee. My number 1 priority, if elected, is to ensure we provide a safe and welcoming learning environment. This means safe buildings, and it means everyone should feel accepted regardless of our uniqueness. We must continue to invest in both school security and social and emotional education so we can ensure that everyone is safe in schools, both physically and emotionally. My second priority, if elected, would be to ensure that Wakefield remains a competitive district known for recruiting and retaining the best teachers, guided by the most competent administrative staff. Third, I will focus on the budget, making sure the investments we make support growth, competitiveness, and student safety. I'll prioritize meeting the needs of all learners and will work to ensure we're making the best investments we can for our special needs students to keep them in district. I'll prioritize maintenance of our buildings because proper proactive maintenance can help avoid budgetary surprises. And as a fellow taxpayer, I will always look for ways to reduce the financial burden our decision-making has on our senior citizens and most in need neighbors. I am forever grateful for the genuine care and life-changing support the Wakefield Public Schools provided to my children. I would be honored for the opportunity to show my appreciation and invest into the schools the same way they invested in my children. I respectfully ask for your vote on April 25th. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex?
I'd like to start by thanking WCAT, the moderator, and then Bob and Ann for this candidate forum tonight. I would also like to thank all of those who have supported me through my campaign, my friends, my family. The biggest thank you, though, goes out to my mother, Althea, and my 3 sons, Mac, Jake, and Lawson, for all of their support through all of this. They are the reason that I'm sitting here tonight. If elected to the Wakefield School Committee, I look forward to working with the Finance Subcommittee, being able to allocate funds in areas of the district that need it, but also ensuring that other areas are not hurt by movement of funds. I will be mindful of funding that comes with strings attached, securing funding that aligns with the mission, goals, and values of our school district. The special ed department is an area that I would work closely with to ensure that we are allocating as much funds as possible to hire special ed teachers, paraprofessionals, and specialists to serve each and every student. Being able to support families who are trying to navigate the process of getting their child a proper diagnosis, assessment, and testing done in order to get their child the services that they need is critical to their academic and social emotional success here in the Wakefield Public Schools. Lastly, if elected, I will continue to fight for parents' rights. My experience in bylaws and policies is valuable in reviewing current district policies and creating new ones that reflect what is taking place in our district, our state, and our country, ensuring that our school is running efficiently. I have the education, background, and experience and the skills to effectively serve our school committee. I bring a wide range and unique set of skills to the table. I want to thank again WCAT for hosting tonight's candidate forum and to all those who have supported me throughout my campaign and through this last year. My passion and desire to be the voice of our children has only grown since last April. I made a promise to my sons a year ago that I would fight to be the voice for parents and students in our community, and I kept my promise. At the end of the day, I want what we all want, for our kids to get the best. For me, it's that simple. They're our children, our schools, and our voice. I would love the opportunity to serve you. I humbly ask for your vote on April 25th, and I look forward to seeing you all at the polls.
Thank you. All right. We are at the end of this debate for the school committee election coming up soon. First of all, I'd like to thank CAT. As I do at every town meeting, I gush over CAT because they deserve it. I want to thank Allie Houghton. She continues a proud family tradition of producing these debates, which started a long time ago with her dad. I'd like to thank Bob and Ann for the questions. These were good questions tonight. They were very insightful, to the point. Yeah, they weren't just general, which was nice. I'd like to thank you, the candidates, for throwing your hat in the ring. You know, you can never underestimate somebody volunteering and wanting to give their time to the town. It's a real respectable choice, if you will. And now it's up to the voters. The election again is on April 25th. CAT, I have to read this because I'll get this wrong inevitably. WCAT will be covering the election night starting at 8 a.m. live, 8 p.m. live on WCAT's government channel. That's Comcast 22, Verizon 42, RCN 13. It does say AM on here. And on the Facebook channel, or by clicking on Watch Now button on CAT's website. So that's how you can get it. It's really accessible. Finally, a reminder to join us at the annual town meeting on May 15th, starting at 7 p.m. at the Galvin Middle School. For all our audience at home, the town council debate will be on a different link, just in case anybody knows how to do that, which I wouldn't have no idea. But thank you for joining us tonight. And again, thank you folks for participating and putting in your time. Okay, thank you very much.